Thank you for joining us for episode 29 of Decatur A Dish. This is a very special installment of our weekly segment that we are doing because you'll have a chance to hear from some candidates that are running for DeKalb County's top seat. June 18th is the date that you're going to want to mark down if you are a DeKalb County resident. The CEO candidate runoff race is happening, and we have been able to talk to some of these candidates who are vying to take Michael Thurmond's place. Dan, what's your thoughts on all of this? We are a couple weeks away at this point.
The keys to the kingdom that is DeKalb County are up for grabs. Our two candidates who prevailed in the primary election last month are Lorraine Cochran-Johnson, a former commissioner, and Larry Johnson, a former commissioner. No relation. There are a lot of people named Johnson on the commission these days. They will square off on June 18th. We've interviewed them multiple times about a number of things. They've graciously agreed to sit and listen to our questions again, and they're going to be doing interviews with us in this episode and telling us a little bit more about why they think they prevailed in May and what their plans are going to be if they are elected in the June 18th runoff.
Dan, I know you've prepared some questions that are really key issues for some of these DeKalb County voters that are going to be tasked with ultimately deciding who is going to take Michael Thurmond's spot and lead DeKalb County into the future. First up, we have Lorraine Cochran-Johnson, and then you'll be able to hear from Larry Johnson, the two candidates running for the seat.
The DeKalb County CEO seat is up for grabs, and we invited both candidates to join the Decatur Dish Show for this special episode to talk about the election and what their plans are if they are elected. Our first interview today is with Lorraine Cochran-Johnson. Commissioner Johnson, how are you today?
I am wonderful and excited to be here. Looking forward to a June 18th runoff.
Well, I appreciate you joining us, especially with on such short notice. It's really a sprint at this point, isn't it, to get to the runoff. What I wanted to ask is, during the campaign, a lot of the conventional wisdom was that it was going to be a runoff between yourself and Steve Bradshaw. You two spent a lot of time going back and forth on the campaign trail. That's not how it shook out. And in fact, you won pretty convincingly in, I think, most of the precincts. What do you think that you did that really resonated with voters and helped carry you to this runoff?
I would say that I am grateful to have a track record. I have served as a DeKalb County Commissioner for 5 years, 3 months, and 10 days, but who's counting? And during that time, I had the ability to deliver. And I do believe that it is a result of the work that I've already done. People know me as a person that they can call, and literally I get things done. And in this race, I hope people have learned that you don't win by endorsements or yard signs. People vote. Voters determine races. Funding is important, but it's not the key factor. The work that you've done, resonating with the people, those are the key things that carry a candidate across the finish line.
Commissioner, why do you think that you're a better candidate than your opponent in this race, Commissioner Larry Johnson?
I will say that, of course, Commissioner Johnson has been present for 2 decades. I would say that in the course of 5 years, I have demonstrated an exceptional track record of delivery. I simply get things done. Since coming on board as a commissioner, I've solved problems. I stand before you and I am the video surveillance system woman. I created laws that keep us safe. I've also contributed heavily to housing. I have seen to it that over 91 individuals have received over $22 million in down payment assistance. I've saved taxpayers $92 million through using simple mandatory audit and allocated the largest dollar amount at $1.4 billion in the history of DeKalb. So I am creating a track record that's rather hard to dispute.
Commissioner, one of our contributors, Jaden Mason, turned around a really excellent story about the water and sewer infrastructure in DeKalb County. And the big eye-popping number that came out of that was that it's going to cost $4 billion to bring our water infrastructure up to where it needs to be. What's your reaction to that?
Well, for 4 decades, DeKalb County did not have a CIP, a capital improvement plan. So for 4 decades, we did absolutely nothing. So, Dan, what you're seeing is delayed maintenance. And we are under a consent decree to expand, replace, and enlarge our infrastructure. And it is absolutely necessary because in certain parts of DeKalb, we've simply not been able to grow because we didn't have the water and sewer capacity. So it's not an option. It's time. We do have options available to us. Of course, currently we have the WIFIA loans, Water Infrastructure Finance Act loans, that we're using primarily to complete that work. And of course, there's unprecedented federal funds available currently through the Infrastructure Act. So I look forward to being the CEO and continuing to secure the funding necessary because the work simply has to be done.
And with that, it's pretty clear that is going to be one of your biggest tasks day one if you are elected. How do you plan to address it?
Well, we are currently on schedule. We have an entire team, and I'd like to acknowledge Maria Hauser, a fellow working woman who has come in. She has steered the ship, and we do not have the ability to not meet those guidelines. Upon walking out of DeKalb, I'd served as the chair of Public Works and Infrastructure for 3 years, and monumental work has been done. I will continue to ensure that we meet all milestones because we have already had one modification to the consent decree. It truly took us some time because we had to begin with simple mapping and scoping. We did not know where our infrastructure was in many instances. So now that we have a firm mapping system, we have remediated all of our highest areas with that caused the most sanitary sewer overflow. We're moving right along, and we're seeing an increased capacity, and we're seeing businesses come online. For anyone watching, DeKalb County is in a wonderful position. We have tons of interest. We've just not had capacity. And that's what I intend to ensure, that we continue to grow that capacity to bring businesses online. So I'm looking forward to doing business.
As you know, DeKalb County is a very divided county in a lot of ways. It feels like we've been having a lot of the same arguments going back decades. This is going to be a very expensive project, replacing all these water and sewer pipes. What are you going to do to build political support for it across DeKalb County? What's going to be your strategy?
Let me say that, of course, DeKalb County has 12 municipalities. And I'm proud to stand here today and say that I believe I have solidified the support of them all in terms of this race. Everyone realizes that there's a lot of work to be done. And in many instances, as we expand, replace, and enlarge infrastructure, it requires a coordinated effort between DeKalb County as well as our municipalities. Everyone has always come to the table because, at the end of the day, we are one DeKalb. And I've not had or seen any of our cities who weren't willing to work with us. And even beyond the cities, we're coordinating with everyone from GDOT on certain projects. So that collaboration will continue. I've seen a willingness, and I do not believe that there's going to be any change there. It's simply my job to ensure the monies are in place and we are moving according to our schedule and meeting that consent decree.
So Mike Thurmond has been the CEO for the last 8 years. I will note that Mike Thurmond was unopposed the last time he ran for CEO.
Yes.
He took over the job at a pretty interesting time for DeKalb County, and I think we could all objectively agree that he brought DeKalb County to a place of stability that it had not experienced in a while. But as we just discussed with the water and sewer infrastructure issue, there's still a lot of work left to be done. In the past, you've expressed a high opinion of Mike Thurmond. What is something that Mike Thurmond has done that you disagree with?
I can say, being a member of the governing authority of DeKalb County, I would have appreciated more collaboration. One thing that I'm keenly aware of is that, the CEO is the chief executive officer. If you want to look at the Org Act, you're directly responsible, of course, for the budget of the county and the operations of the county. However, all commissioners have a voice because they each represent 7 groups of individuals. So I would have appreciated more collaboration on issues rather than reading press releases about things that directly affected us as a governing body. And that's where I look forward to having the opportunity to fully engage all commissioners sit down on an annual basis. I came from corporate America, and we would have an annual retreat at the beginning of the year where we clearly laid out our goals and objectives. And those are the type things that I'm really looking forward to, leading but governing alongside the entire body.
Commissioner, we put a call for questions out ahead of this interview to the public, and the overwhelming consensus question was 911 response times. It continues to be an issue that is really worrisome to a lot of residents when they call 911 and they're on hold for minutes at a time. If you're elected CEO, what will you do to improve 911 response times in DeKalb County?
Let me say that, when it comes to 911 response times, it is absolutely critical that we get it right. It was after I had qualified for CEO and stepped down from the seat that reports were released that documented the severity, I should say, of the situation. Of course, currently in DeKalb, I had concerns because when our ambulance system does not meet the state required time, of course, there's a fine, and at the end of the year, we get a check. But my goal here isn't acquiring or receiving funds, but receiving the service, because 911 is a critical service. So I would like to, upon returning, if the issue has not been addressed, because I believe it should be addressed at this moment, I would take seat once elected January 1st, but I would like to, of course, call in a direct study to determine what our service levels are. And if necessary, we can put out another RFP, whether or not we're going to retain that company or bring others on board to ensure service delivery. Because in many instances across DeKalb, we have IGAs, which are intergovernmental agreements with our municipalities to provide services. So we've got to look at perhaps dividing the county, having different services in place in different areas, whether south, central, and north. But regardless, the opportunity, or shall I say the missed opportunity to reach response times, that's not acceptable.
Commissioner, if you were elected on June 18th, if you prevail in this runoff election, what is going to be the first thing that you do to prepare for your role as CEO, which will start in January of 2025?
The first thing that I'd like to do, I've found across DeKalb that, ambiguity leads to a lack of accountability. And I think the number one role of a chief executive is to ensure good government and proper operations. Also, we continue to remain under executive order to work remotely as a result of the global pandemic. My first order of business will be to bring people back to work. Also to determine across all 19 of our departments roles and responsibilities and who's in those positions. Once I have the opportunity to see where we are and who's present, then set about making sure that people have defined roles and responsibilities to get rid of the ambiguity that has led to a lack of accountability in certain departments. And I think that will get us on track, because it's really important here that we function properly and we have proper people in place to meet the needs of the citizens. So that's, for me, where it has to start, with the entire organization from top to bottom.
Commissioner, that's all of our questions for you today. I wanted to give you an opportunity to make a closing statement before we move on to our next interview.
In closing, I'd just like to thank the people of DeKalb County. Back on the 21st, you all came out, and thanks to you, out of 196 precincts, I held the majority vote in 151. I'm the junior most person in this race, but I take no issue with saying that I have been the most productive person in this race, and I also represent a new day. I have never belonged to an establishment. I belong to the people of DeKalb, and it has been my honor to serve you. I look forward to us making history together. I want you guys to really pay attention to the issues. Do not be distracted, because DeKalb County is truly at a crossroad. We are facing issues that are honestly detrimental to our future if we don't get them right. High capacity transit, affordable housing, economic development, particularly in South and unincorporated DeKalb. And I'm a lady with a plan. So please visit my website. But most importantly, this race will define who we become. And I look forward to becoming your next CEO and moving us progressively forward and creating a completely new day in DeKalb County.
Commissioner Lorraine Cochran-Johnson, thank you for joining us. Best of luck to you on June 18th. And now we're going to hear from your opponent, Commissioner Larry Johnson. Hello and welcome to part 2 of our interviews with the candidates for DeKalb County CEO in the June 18th runoff. The next conversation is with DeKalb County Commissioner Larry Johnson. Commissioner Johnson, how are you?
The best day of my life, Dan. Good to be in the house.
Great. Glad to have you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the runoff. First of all, congratulations making it to the runoff with the other candidate, Lorraine Cochran-Johnson. I know it was a tough campaign and you all worked very hard.
Thank you, sir.
So my first question is, what part of your campaign do you think resonated the most with voters and allowed you to get to where you are right now?
I think the new energy and fresh ideas that we were able to share across the county, they understood around infrastructure equity that I have championed for years, where we do the trails, the sidewalks, brought our seniors and young people together. It was all about my public health experience. And as we came through COVID took the scab off of a lot of our mental health issues. And so bringing that experience and serving on the national level, where we brought funding back from the American Rescue Plan and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act for $973 billion with a B. People said, we want something fresh, we want something innovative, but we want experience. And that's what I was able to resonate across the county. And that's why I'm here today. Commissioner
Johnson also had a number of some significant endorsements. Andre Dickens, the mayor of Atlanta, I think was one.
Yes.
Stacey Abrams.
Shirley Franklin.
Yeah, so you're pretty well networked as well, which I think definitely puts some additional name recognition out there. But why do you think that you're a better candidate than your opponent, Lorraine Cochran-Johnson?
I think I'm a better candidate because I will basically use very sound judgment and make things happen. And just, you know, as we saw, Lorraine sponsored what I call a DeKalb mega event, a breakfast, and you can't do those type of things and try to resonate with all of the DeKalb. It's all about bringing people together and making things happen in our community. And so I bring together collaborative leadership that's going to make a difference in our community. And I'm about bringing people together, and that's what people saw, and that's what we want, experience and sound leadership to make that happen.
So you might have read in Decatur-ish recently, Jaden Mason wrote an excellent story about DeKalb County's water infrastructure. And the eye-popping stat from this story was that it's going to take about $4.4 billion, it's a lot of money, to bring DeKalb County's water and sewer infrastructure up to where it needs to be. What's your reaction to that news? Does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't surprise me because the system is almost 70 years old. And it was neglected, and thank God we started when I was newly on the commission to make sure we can tackle our infrastructure needs, because infrastructure equals economic development. You can't grow jobs, you can't grow small businesses if you don't have a good water and clean water system. And so it doesn't surprise me, but the good thing is the new technology we have today, Dan, was not available 10 to 15 years ago, which is going to allow us to be more efficient and more effective. And we're building that, what I would call the clean water system, right there in District 3 on Snapfinger, that's going to allow us to expand economic development in South and Central DeKalb, which is where the growth is.
So obviously this is going to be something that you're confronted with day one.
That's right.
If you're elected. What's your plan? How are you going to tackle this problem?
My plan is, on day one, is to make sure we follow the blueprint that our CEO, we have, Michael Thurmond. I'm going to keep the water and sewers personnel at the cabinet level, right there on the 6th floor, where I can be eyeball to eyeball with them. But I'm also going to be on the ground and making sure I'm available to our engineers and experts and to our residents, because you have to be able to explain the process of why we're building, why the roads may be crumbling, why we have to do some repair work. So I want to be working with our professionals to make sure I'm being a coach and can help lead and to inspire and to educate the residents of DeKalb on why having a safe, clean water system is better for our future, our grandkids, and better for our economic development and just our overall quality of life.
So, Commissioner Johnson, when that news came out, I tend to follow the reactions of people on social media and commenting on the website. The first thing, and maybe this is just because this is DeKalb County, the first thing I saw was, well, who's going to get their pipes fixed first? Or who's going to get the contracts first? Everybody immediately got caught up in who's going to win and who's going to lose.
Sad.
And that's because DeKalb County has a diverse constituency, and we fight about a lot of the same issues about who gets what and when. How are you going to be able to bridge those political divides in DeKalb County to accomplish not only the goal of upgrading the water system, which is badly needed, but some of the other goals that you have?
Well, I think one thing is, as a collaborative leader, as what I would call a capacity builder, you have to go out and connect with the community. My public health experience is all about building around a community of individuals. So I'm going to go out there to the neighborhoods. I want to talk to them directly with the leaders, the department heads who are helping to lead the day-to-day operation, because you have to go where the rubber meets the road. County government is about service delivery. Politics is 100% relationship business. My job and my goal is to be the CEO that allow us to go out and connect the dots each and every day. You got to get in front of things. You got to be proactive. And the best way to be proactive, Dan, is to make sure that we bring out those departments in those communities. I'm going to go to every mall that we have. I'm going to hit those HOAs that we have who needs help. And we'll have our surrogates, our outreach people, to making sure that we are proactive, not waiting on someone to call us. We're going to go out there, and that's what I've exemplified as a District 3 commissioner. That's why I lasted so long, because I was able to collaborate and build partnerships and work with our local neighborhood groups, because it's about bringing the grassroots and the grass tops together. But you got to have a leader who can connect the dots, and I'm that CEO who can do that.
So, Commissioner, you mentioned CEO Michael Thurmond, who has been the CEO for the last 8 years. I think it's easy for people to forget in DeKalb County what things were like before Michael Thurmond became the CEO.
Right.
Over the 8 years, I would say that it's easy to point out that he's brought a lot of stability to DeKalb County. When he ran 4 years ago, he wasn't even opposed, which that kind of tells you something. All that said, what is something that Michael Thurmond has done over his 8 years that you've disagreed with?
Well, that's a good question. I'm trying to just go back and just look and review some of the things that we may have disagreed with. It wasn't, I wouldn't say it was a disagreement. It was just a matter of just finding the time to making sure stuff that we really couldn't control, but the water and sewer, when you had those breaks in the pipes, a lot of residents were inconvenienced and could not get to their homes. And so just trying to do that, we had a bridge that's been out for about 4 years. I got the funding for that bridge, and I want that bridge to get up and running. The residents have been waiting. So some of those things to just usher and just say, Mike, we need to push and get these things done, because the residents' quality of life is at stake, and they want to have some peace.
So, understandably. So we put the question out on Facebook, said, what questions do you have for the CEO candidates for this runoff? And overwhelmingly, they wanted to know about 911 response times. Everybody who's lived in DeKalb County who's had to call 911 has experienced this. You call, and sometimes you're on hold for 2, 3, 4 minutes. It's kind of a terrifying experience, especially if you've got an actual emergency going on. So if you're elected, what is your plan to improve 911 response times in DeKalb County?
That's an excellent question. I had an experience a while back with my mom. She had stage 4 lung cancer, and she was living by herself, and the neighbor had to call me, but before they can reach me, they had to call the 911 system to get an ambulance out there. And it was so crucial because my mom was laying on the floor. I didn't know, I'm an only child, so I didn't know what was going on, but they had got there and had to move quickly. And thank goodness she didn't have to go to the hospital, but it was a sense of relief that I had some professional personnel there. So 911 is going to be very, very crucial to me and one of those priorities, because every second counts. I'm in public health. I understand a heart attack, a stroke, somebody falling out of a tree, a baby who accidentally swallows a coin, even trying to get a cat out of a tree. Those things are very important. So first thing is we want to make sure that we're recruiting, bringing qualified personnel to the table to make sure we have the best trained, best equipped 911 system. And then we got to make sure our technology is up to date. And then we got to do education, Dan, because 30% of the calls that goes to 911 are non-emergency calls. Like, what time is it? I don't like my chicken wings. They wasn't cooked right. So finding a way to educate people, but also do training and bring education back. And we got to continue to pay and make sure we are the best equipped that we have. And so quality of life, one call delay is too much because your life is on the line. And so I can identify with that. When I went through with my mom with stage 4 lung cancer, and she was fell out of the bed. And so I want to make sure that I keep people in mind on how they will act if a system was delayed. So that would be one of my priorities: the funding, the technology, and the education.
I want to personally apologize for calling 911 multiple times to complain about how my chicken wings were cooked. It's a known problem with me, and I do apologize for taking up
You see, he was one of the people.
See, I'm wasting people's time. That's what I do. Commissioner, let's say that you're fortunate enough to prevail on June 18th. What is the first thing you're going to do to get ready for your role as CEO?
One of the first things I want to do is you have to make sure you connect with multiple groups. One of the first groups I want to connect with is our county commissioners. As coming from a county commissioner, I understand that we govern together in partnerships. I want to also, and it's not in any particular order, but also work with our mayors and also work with unincorporated DeKalb, the citizens, to make sure that we have our priorities together on what they want to see based on what we did in the campaign, that we're resonating, that we're working together, because one person cannot do this job. It takes a collaborative effort, and I say this all the time: an individual wins trophies, but a team wins championship. And so I want to work with these collaborative bodies, work with our business community, making sure our sanitation workers are moving and have the things that they need, but also working with our human services around our young people and our seniors. And so my first 30 days or 100 days are going to be filled with just connecting, listening, to work with the key folks to make sure we can move DeKalb forward.
Commissioner, we appreciate you taking time to join us today. We wanted to give you an opportunity to make a final statement before we close out.
Yes, I just want you to say, come on back out. We did overwhelmingly well. That's why I'm in the runoff, because you believe in the message as a person who's experienced and ethical, who's going to do the right things by your tax dollars and make things happen. We're going to get those potholes filled. We're going to focus on our young people with WIN, workforce innovation and next generation, finding vocational jobs for them to get into. And we can't do that without you coming back out to the polls. Early voting starts June 10th to the 14th. Election day is June 18th. LJ4CEO.com. I need your vote. I like your support, because we're going to win it with your help.
And that concludes our interviews of the CEO candidates for the June 18th runoff. Again, early voting is going to start on June 10th. It's going to end on June 14th. It's a very short window of time. Then you're going to have the runoff date. That's going to be Tuesday, June 18th. Polls are going to be open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you need information about what you're voting on and what's going to be on your ballot, you can go to DeKalbVotes.com. That's where you can get information from the county. DecaturishVotes.com is where you can get information from us about the candidates, see their Q&As, see coverage of some of the forums. If you support Decatorish, if you appreciate what we do, please visit supportyourlocalnews.com and become a paying subscriber. We really need you. If you want to support our work with Atlanta News First, please download the Atlanta News First app. It's free, and it's a great way to support them. You can get episodes of this show and all the other great content that is produced by our media partners. And with that, we hope you all have a great week. We hope you all remember to vote in the June 18th runoff, and we will see you next Tuesday. Have a good week, everybody.